Vice principal's sick photos of students. Exposed at school board meeting. I should have known. Something was seriously wrong when Vice Principal Walsh called me to his office for wearing a blue polo shirt that was apparently too distracting for the male students to concentrate. Let me back up and explain how I ended up in this nightmare that nearly destroyed my junior year and my family's financial stability. My name is Maya Chen, and up until 3 months ago, I thought I had everything figured out. I was junior class president with a 3.8 GPA, captain of the debate team, and working 20 hours a week at Target to help my mom pay for my little brother Danny's autism therapy. Danny is 8 years old and needs behavioral therapy twice a week that costs our family $400 a month even after insurance. Mom works double shifts as a nurse, but it's still not enough to cover everything. The scholarship I qualified for junior year was supposed to help with college prep courses and eventually cover part of my tuition if I maintained my grades and stayed involved in school activities. Losing that scholarship wasn't just about my future. It would mean Danny might have to cut back on therapy sessions that were finally helping him communicate better. I'd been dealing with what I thought were normal teenage problems until the day I accidentally witnessed something that changed everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon in early March, and I had stayed late for debate practice. I was walking to my car in the nearly empty parking lot when I saw Mrs. Rodriguez, my married English teacher, pressed up against Vice Principal Walsh behind his black SUV. They were kissing, and his hands were definitely not appropriate for a professional relationship. I froze behind another car, not knowing what to do. Mrs. Rodriguez was married to Mr. Rodriguez, who taught math at the middle school, and Walsh was supposedly this upstanding administrator who gave speeches about moral character at every school assembly. I quietly got in my car and drove home, deciding it wasn't my business and I would just pretend I never saw anything. That was my first mistake. The next morning, Mrs. Rodriguez called me over after English class. "Maya, I need to speak with you privately," she said, her voice tight with tension. "Is everything okay, Mrs. Rodriguez? I saw you in the parking lot yesterday afternoon," she said, studying my face carefully. "You seemed surprised by something." My heart started racing. I tried to play dumb. I was just tired after debate practice. "Long day, you know." "Right," she said slowly. "Well, I just want you to know that sometimes adults have complicated situations that students might not understand. It's important to focus on your own academics and not get distracted by things that aren't your concern." The warning was clear, even though she never explicitly mentioned what I had seen. I nodded and left class feeling uneasy, but I figured that would be the end of it. I was wrong. 2 days later, I got called to Vice Principal Walsh's office for the first time in my 3 years at Jefferson High. "Maya, we need to discuss your attire," Walsh said without any greeting or explanation. I looked down at my outfit. I was wearing dark jeans that came to my ankles, sneakers, and a navy blue polo shirt that covered everything appropriately. It was literally the same style of shirt I had worn dozens of times before. "I'm sorry, Mr. Walsh, but I don't understand what the issue is. The color blue can be very distracting to male students. I'm going to need you to change into something more appropriate." I stared at him in disbelief. "Blue is distracting? Don't argue with me, Miss Chen. Report to the nurse's office and call your mother to bring you a different shirt." I wanted to protest, but Walsh's tone made it clear this wasn't a discussion. I spent 2 hours in the nurse's office waiting for my mom to drive over on her lunch break, missing my AP history class and a quiz that counted toward our midterm grade. That was just the beginning. Over the next 2 weeks, Walsh found increasingly ridiculous reasons to send me home or to the office. A white sweater was too tight even though it was loose-fitting. My black jeans were apparently too dark and created a negative atmosphere. A yellow t-shirt was too bright and energetic for the learning environment. Each violation meant missing class time, falling behind on assignments, and having to explain to my teachers why I kept disappearing. My debate team coach started asking questions about my commitment since I had missed 2 practices due to these dress code issues. The worst part was that I could see other girls wearing similar or more revealing outfits without any consequences. Sarah Martinez wore crop tops that showed her stomach, and Jessica Park's skirts were definitely shorter than dress code allowed, but they never got called to the office. I started documenting everything. I took pictures of my outfits each morning and wrote down exactly what Walsh said when he sent me home. I also started noticing that Walsh seemed to appear wherever I was throughout the day. If I was at my locker, he would walk by. If I was eating lunch with friends, he would patrol our area more than usual. "This is getting weird, Maya," my best friend Alex said during lunch one Thursday. "It's like he's stalking you or something." Alex Rodriguez, yes, same last name as my English teacher but no relation, was a senior who worked as a student aide in the IT department. He knew more about the school's computer systems than most of the actual tech staff. "I don't know what I did to make him target me like this," I said, picking at my sandwich, "but it's starting to affect my grades and my job." My manager at Target had already given me a warning about my shifting availability due to the random school suspensions. I couldn't afford to lose that job, not with Danny's therapy costs and my own college application fees coming up. "Have you told your mom what's happening?" I've tried, but she's so stressed with work and Danny's needs. She keeps telling me to just follow the rules and avoid trouble. She doesn't understand that I am following the rules. They're just being applied differently to me. The breaking point came 3 weeks later, right before state testing week. I had been extra careful that Monday morning, wearing a plain gray long-sleeved shirt, black pants that came down to my shoes, and basic sneakers. I looked like I was going to church, not school. I made it through first and second period without incident. But as I was walking to third period, Walsh appeared in the hallway. "Miss Chen, please report to my office immediately." "What's the violation today?" I asked, no longer trying to hide my frustration. Inappropriate attitude and disrespectful tone. "That's a suspension. You can't suspend me for asking a question. I can suspend you for whatever I determine is disruptive to the educational environment. Your attitude has been consistently problematic. This was insane. I had never been in trouble before this year, and suddenly I was being suspended for having an attitude when I was being harassed daily. Mr. Walsh, state testing starts tomorrow. If I miss any of those days, I automatically fail junior year regardless of my GPA. Then you should have thought about that before becoming disrespectful. The suspension starts now." I felt panic rising in my chest. Everything I had worked for was falling apart because of this man's bizarre vendetta against me. "Please, I'm begging you. I don't know what I did wrong, but I'm sorry. I need to take those tests." Walsh leaned back in his chair, with what I can only describe as a satisfied smirk. "Actions have consequences. Miss Chen, maybe this will teach you to show proper respect to authority figures." I left his office feeling completely defeated. The suspension would last 3 days, covering the entire state testing window. Without those test scores, my scholarship would be revoked. I wouldn't graduate on time, and I couldn't run for senior class president next year. That night, I finally broke down and told my mom everything that had been happening. She was furious but felt helpless against the school administration. "We'll request a meeting with the school board," she said. "This is clearly harassment. Mom, by the time we get a meeting scheduled, it will be too late. I'll have already missed the tests." She held me while I cried, and I could see the stress and worry in her face. She was already working herself to exhaustion, and now she was going to have to fight the school system too. The next morning, Alex called me before school started. "Maya, you need to get down here right now. I'm in the IT office and you're not going to believe what I just found. I'm suspended, remember? I can't come to school. Trust me, you need to see this. Meet me at the side entrance by the gym. I'll let you in." Against my better judgment, I drove to school and met Alex at the side door. He looked pale and angry. "I was doing routine maintenance on the administrative computers yesterday," he said as we walked quickly through the empty hallways. "Walsh's computer had some kind of malware issue, so I had to back up his files before running a system restore." We reached the IT office and Alex locked the door behind us. "Maya." He has a folder on his desktop labeled Dress Code Documentation, and it's filled with photos of female students. My blood turned to ice. "What kind of photos?" Alex turned his computer screen toward me and I felt sick to my stomach. There were dozens of photos that Walsh had clearly taken without permission during dress code violations. Pictures of girls bending over to pick up their bags, close-ups of chest and hip areas, images taken from behind as students walked away. And there I was. In at least 15 different photos from the past month. "Alex, this is completely illegal." "It gets worse," he said, clicking to another folder. "Look at this email chain." The emails were between Walsh and Mrs. Rodriguez, and they made everything crystal clear. Mrs. Rodriguez had convinced Walsh to make my life miserable until I transferred schools or dropped out, claiming I was a threat to both of their reputations and marriages. But Walsh had taken it several steps further than she had requested. The email showed that he was planning to use the photos to create some kind of presentation about inappropriate student behavior that he could show to other administrators as examples of dress code violations. "He's been using us as his personal photo collection," I said, feeling violated and angry beyond words. "The school board meeting about your suspension is scheduled for tomorrow night," Alex said. "Mrs. Chen already filed the complaint." An idea started forming in my mind. A terrible, risky, potentially perfect idea. "Alex, you're supposed to present the IT department's monthly report at that meeting, right?" "Yeah, just basic stuff about network security and system updates." "What if there was a technical malfunction with the projection system?" Alex stared at me for a long moment, then slowly smiled. "That would be unfortunate. Technical difficulties happen all the time." The school board meeting was held in the main auditorium, and it was packed. Word had gotten around about my suspension, and apparently I wasn't the only student who had been having issues with Walsh's enforcement of dress code policies. At least 20 students and their parents had shown up to support me. My mom and I sat in the front row as the board went through their regular agenda items. Walsh was there in his best suit, looking confident and prepared. Mrs. Rodriguez was sitting in the back, probably hoping no one would connect her to any of this. When it came time for my case, the board chairman called me forward to present my side of the situation. "Maya Chen has been suspended for 3 days due to repeated Dress code violations and disrespectful behavior toward administrative staff, the chairman read from Walsh's report. This suspension unfortunately coincides with state testing, which means Miss Chen will need to repeat her junior year. That's exactly why we're here, my mom said, standing up. My daughter has never been in trouble before this year, maintains excellent grades, and contributes significantly to this school community. Something is very wrong with this situation. Walsh stood up to defend his actions. Mrs. Chen, I understand this is difficult, but Maya has consistently violated dress code policies and shown a rebellious attitude when corrected. Sometimes students need to face real consequences to learn respect for authority. What specific dress code violations? I asked, pulling out my documentation folder. Maya, you're not supposed to speak unless recognized by the chair, Walsh said condescendingly. Let her speak, said board member Mrs. Patterson. These are serious accusations affecting her academic future. I opened my folder and started reading specific examples. March 8th, sent home for wearing a blue polo shirt that was allegedly too distracting. March 15th, suspended for wearing a white sweater that was apparently too tight, even though it was loose-fitting. March 22nd, sent to the office for wearing black jeans that created a negative atmosphere. Several parents in the audience started murmuring. These violations sounded as ridiculous out loud as they had felt in the moment. Furthermore, I continued, I have documented that other female students regularly wear more revealing clothing without any consequences. This appears to be targeted harassment rather than consistent policy enforcement. Walsh's face was getting red. Miss Chen, your attitude right now is exactly why you're in this situation. You refuse to accept responsibility for your actions. What actions? I shot back. Following the written dress code policy while being singled out for arbitrary enforcement? The room was getting tense. Board members were taking notes and looking concerned. I think we need to see some evidence of these dress code violations, said the chairman. Mr. Walsh, do you have documentation of the inappropriate attire? Walsh smiled confidently. Actually, yes. I've been documenting these issues to help other administrators recognize similar problems. Alex Rodriguez from our IT department is going to present some visual examples. My heart started pounding. This was it. Alex walked to the front with his laptop and connected it to the projection system. The large screen behind the board lit up, showing his desktop. I apologize in advance for any technical difficulties, Alex announced to the room. Our system has been having some issues lately. He opened what appeared to be a PowerPoint presentation titled Student Dress Code Documentation. And I held my breath. Instead of a professional presentation, the screen filled with the contents of Walsh's photo folder. The reaction was immediate and explosive. What the hell is this? Shouted one parent. Are those pictures of students? Gasped another. Turn it off! Turn it off right now! Yelled Mrs. Rodriguez from the back, jumping to her feet. But Alex was having technical difficulties. The more he clicked, the more photos appeared on screen. Close-ups of female students' bodies. Pictures taken without permission. Images that were clearly inappropriate and potentially illegal. I'm so sorry, Alex said loudly over the chaos. The system seems to be malfunctioning. These files appear to be stored on the administrative network. Walsh was frantically trying to reach the laptop, but board members were blocking his path. Nobody touch anything until we figure out what we're looking at, commanded the chairman. Those are my photos, Walsh blurted out, then immediately realized what he had just admitted. The room went completely silent. Your photos? Asked Mrs. Patterson slowly. Walsh's face went white as he realized his mistake. I mean, those are documented evidence of dress code violations. I take photos to maintain records. You take unauthorized photos of female students' bodies to maintain records? Asked the chairman, his voice dangerously quiet. This is not what it looks like, Walsh stammered, but Alex wasn't done with his technical difficulties. The email chain between Walsh and Mrs. Rodriguez suddenly appeared on screen, showing their plan to harass me until I left school. Mrs. Rodriguez tried to run for the door, but several parents blocked her path. Call the police, someone shouted. Get those perverts away from our kids, yelled another parent. Within 20 minutes, both Walsh and Mrs. Rodriguez were in handcuffs. The police confiscated Walsh's computer and found even more inappropriate images, some dating back several years. It turned out that I wasn't his first target. He had been systematically photographing and harassing female students for at least 3 years, but most families had just transferred their daughters to other schools rather than fight the system. The school board issued a formal apology to me and my family the next morning, along with a complete reversal of my suspension and permission to take makeup state tests the following week. They also announced that both Walsh and Mrs. Rodriguez had been terminated immediately and would face criminal charges. The story made local news, and suddenly I was getting calls from reporters and advocacy groups. Several other families came forward with similar experiences, leading to a federal investigation of the school district's handling of harassment complaints. My scholarship was reinstated with an additional stipend for the stress and academic disruption I had endured. The school board also paid for Danny's therapy sessions for 6 months as part of their settlement with our family. Mrs. Rodriguez ended up pleading guilty to conspiracy and lost her teaching license permanently. Her husband filed for divorce within a month. Walsh was sentenced to 2 years in prison for illegal photography and harassment. During his trial, investigators found evidence that he had been sharing inappropriate images of students with other adults online. Alex became something of a hero at school, though he always insisted he was just doing his job maintaining the computer systems. He got a full scholarship to study cybersecurity in college. As for me, I won the election for senior class president by the largest margin in school history. I also started a student advocacy group that helps kids report harassment and discrimination safely. Danny's therapy continued to help him make progress. And he started talking about wanting to be a computer programmer like Alex when he grows up. Looking back, I learned that sometimes staying quiet and hoping problems will go away just makes things worse. If I had spoken up immediately after witnessing Walsh and Mrs. Rodriguez together, maybe I could have avoided months of harassment. But I also learned that there are people willing to help when you're brave enough to ask for it. My mom, Alex, and even some of the board members were ready to fight for what was right once they understood what was really happening. Most importantly, I learned that bullies in positions of power often have more to hide than you think. Walsh thought he could destroy my future to protect his secret, but in the end, his own behavior destroyed him. I'm starting my senior year next month with my 3.9 GPA intact, my scholarship secure, and a much better understanding of how to stand up for myself and others. And every time I wear a blue shirt to school, I think about how far I've come from that scared junior who just wanted to avoid trouble. Sometimes trouble finds you anyway. And the only choice is how you're going to fight back.